here we want to look at dividing a complex number, or one that's a fraction. And so similar to when we had to rationalize the denominator, something's not considered simplified if you have an I in the denominator. When they ask you to write it in standard form, they basically want your real part and your imaginary part to be separate, and so we can't do that when we have I in the denominator. So also similar to rationalizing the denominator, we want to multiply by the exact same thing, only if they have -1 minus 2i, we want -1 plus 2i. We're going to exploit that difference of squares pattern so that the I ends up canceling out. So picture on the bottom here, if I FOIL, -1 times -1 gives me 1. And then -2 times +2 gives me -4. And I times I gives me I squared. Now why didn't I bother with the inside-outside terms? Because notice one of them is plus 2i and one of them is minus 2i, so they cancel anyways because I set that up to be difference of squares. So on the top, I can distribute the 5, so I get -5, and 5 times 2i is 10i. Alright, so at first it looks like, well wait, weren't we supposed to cancel out the i's? But remember, since I is square root of -1, then I squared cancels that square root, and so I squared is always the same as just -1. So whenever I see an I squared, I can replace it. And so if I replace this with -1, since I know it's already the same thing as that, this is -4 times -1, so it'll say 1 plus 4. Alright, then when they say standard form, I mean keep the real and the imaginary part separate. So this being all divided by 5 is the same as saying this is divided by 5 and this is divided by 5. So they're standard form, but now some of these fractions reduce, right? So this ends up being -1 plus 2i, -5 divided by 5, and 10 divided by 5. So you're using the conjugate. Just like with the square root thing, you're using the same plus minus to get rid of the I and then separate the real and imaginary parts. And it's okay if they stay fractions, they don't always reduce this nicely, but you have a separate real part and a separate part that's with the I.